Right now, the political divide on things like minimum wage, income inequality, almost as large as the gap between haves and have-nots. Is the issue a winner for the Democrats this fall, or will the class warfare claim that if you don't want to be poor, stop being poor, actually resonate with voters? And then, that lack of work being done in your office today, it means, that's right, the NCAA tournament is in full swing. It's a multi-billion-dollar business for everybody, that is, but the guys in the shorts. Is it time for the players to start cashing in? And later, de Blasio time. The new mayor, he's got a tendency to be, let's just say, a little late for just about everything. But the question is it really that big a deal? And why are so many political reporters, including some at this table, taking to Twitter to complain? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. Oh, this is Obi's been all over this all day today. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us this Thursday evening, March 20th. Hopefully your brackets aren't destroyed already. All right, we begin, though, with the issue that keeps reappearing as one of the biggest differences that you can find tangible in Washington, and it's not just in D.C., it's on state-level races and even more local than that. Two parties divided when it comes to the issue of inequality. Democrats, they keep playing up the remedies to inequality like minimum wage, food stamps, unemployment insurance. Republicans, they keep calling that class warfare. It's been in the headlines again this week thanks to a story in Politico. In it, Republican donor and Home Depot founder Ken Langone saying on class and inequality arguments, quote, "I hope it's not working because if you go back to 1933 with different words, it is the same thing of what Hitler was doing in Germany." He goes on to say, you don't survive as a society if you encourage and thrive on envy and jealousy. Now, first of all, we've said so many times, Republican, Democrat here, stop with the Nazi references and Hitler references. It never, ever works. It always blows up in your face. Guy Langone's smart enough, he should know better than that. Nothing is ever as bad as Nazi Germany. Okay. But on the subject of inequality, the GOP, they're not letting this one go. Some even arguing that more equality is worse for the nation.
The debate that needs to be had between the two parties has to be, do we want equality of income or greatness of opportunity?
Okay, that argument combining in recent weeks with this one, that if you're poor in America and you don't want to be, just stop being poor. I'm not making this up. This was originally something that the GOP got slammed for, but they've actually been embracing it within the party, some saying that's the model we ought to play here this fall. Nothing poor about our panel tonight, so let's bring in a packed house, if you will. TJ McCormick, the shy and soft-spoken host of Good Morning Westchester and WVOX Radio, the dulcet tones. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And next to me, riding shotgun, Ellis Hennigan, a columnist for Newsday, political analyst and author, and the voice of Stormy on his hit Cartoon Network series, C-Lab 2021. Absolutely.
Yeah, speaking of dulcet tones, yeah.
And O'Brien Murray, or we call him Obi, a Republican strategist and co-founder of New York Meeting, professional troublemaker, and Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. Okay. Obi, you'll like this. I'll start with you. The comment coming out, if you don't like being poor, stop being poor. It came off as so tone deaf, it was in every fundraiser that the Democrats could send out nationally, locally, every committee. Republicans, for some reason, said, hey, you know what? This makes sense. Instinctively, as somebody with a campaign, would you want a Republican candidate that employs you to use that as his or her mantra here, that if you don't want to be poor, all you got to do is stop being poor?
Well, I think the first thing is it's how you say things and where they go.
I'm reading the slogan verbatim.
I'm just saying. But the real aspect of this is, what are the opportunities that we're willing to offer people to bring themselves up? And I think that's the debate that has to be had. Certain people say things certain ways. They don't say it right all the time. But the reality is the Democrats have an idea of, here, let's tax everybody, let's take the money, let's redistribute it. Okay. That's what the plan is. That's something that we are against.
What we can do at this table, though, is we can talk specifics on this one, because we got some tangible things. 3 things in Washington we saw fights over, right? So one was unemployment insurance. In the end, GOP caved on that one because they saw how the polls were going. They didn't really want this role, the treble the president and his party has, to really make that an issue that they're going to hit on. Minimum wage. We're going to see this fight keep coming up here. $10, 10 cents an hour. They want to make that the law of the land, if you will. They make that the national number that should be the minimum wage for an American worker. We got tangible issues that are on the table right now. Does the Republican Party think on minimum wage, on food stamps, on unemployment insurance, that the public is pulling 70% in every one of these?
The Republican Party in Washington did not cave on unemployment. We found a way to pay for it and see where we can go going forward. You can't just sit here in Washington and start saying, hey, let's pay for everything and just see how we're going to pay for it later. You can't keep on borrowing, number one. Number two, 10-10. Why 10-10? Why not $20? Where do you stop minimum wage? At what point does it help the middle class? So when you're talking
about,
a
question, I'm bringing everybody. Well,
when you talk,
do you think there should be any minimum wage?
10-10, first of all, 10-10 is not an answer. 10-10 is a slogan. 10-10 came out of a petri dish at DNC headquarters. It's a joke. And the minimum wage at 10-10, where's 10-10 going to lift anybody out of anywhere?
TJ.
10-10.
Should there be
You
any
know it's a
minimum
slogan
wage?
as well
Should
as
there be
I do
any
there,
minimum
Rich.
wage?
What?
Should there be a fixed basement that you can't earn less
Should there
than?
be a fixed ceiling, a fixed basement? I don't know. It's a non-starter
non-answer.
Because it's a
Richard,
non-solution, Rich, and you know it.
Notice 1, 2, 3. We're being quiet on this. You know why?
Because it's a loser for you to talk about.
We're being quiet because Republicans were doing so good keeping their mouth shut and letting the president hang on Obamacare. They can't do it. They just can't do it.
You know what? Here you go. Carter. He asked the question. What is the ideal?
Richard? So now what do they do?
Can't hear what
They
it's
can't. They just can't stay quiet.
Dominic, here
so
you go.
that foot has come up. The foot has
Dominic?
come up, and oops, it's in the
Dominic,
mouth.
here you go, Dom.
And they're going to cost themselves.
Your chance.
They're going to cost themselves the midterm elections if they continue.
Ready? Here's your
So
chance.
keep talking.
Here's your chance. What is too much? Answer that one, and you got me.
What is too much?
for a minimum wage?
Where
What's the
should
top?
the minimum wage stop?
Where does it
At
end?
what point, or Ellis even, where do you go with this?
What would you say?
I think, by the way, we got an answer to your question, and it's no. Let them earn a nickel.
Yeah.
Let them earn a dime. Because, and it's they
Do you
don't
remember why-
they don't
where-
really want to say that.
Wait, oh, wait,
because
you don't
it's
wanna say
too-
that 13's
it's
too much.
It's too horrible to
22.
say out loud. So we have theater, and we have listen. Let's agree on a couple of facts. The best way to get rich in America is to be born that way.
Yep.
And the second best way to be rich in America is to marry someone who's rich. And if we look at the statistic, there are some examples today of really, really poor people who become really rich people, but not an awful lot of them. And what government does actually matters. If there's an income tax, it helps. If we help those people who are starving, it helps a little bit. And decent people don't want their fellow Americans to starve and not have health care.
Yeah, and one of the basic
But
tenets
Ellis,
of conservatism
10-10
is a safety net.
doesn't end a starvation issue. What I'm saying is, I've said this on air.
Better than
I
zero,
don't.
would you
I
wanna
don't
give
believe. No. I
zero?
believe in the competitive spirit of this country, and I've said this on air, and that's why Richard didn't ask me and he asked TJ. I don't
give
think
me
there
way
should.
too much credit.
I don't think there should be a minimum wage
can we just
because
stop for
Ellis,
that?
if you have a company, you pay what you want.
Here again, what I was loving to do was facts on this one, and we're going off the rails.
Okay.
Here is the fact that nobody debates. Income inequality in the country wider than it's been since you go back before the Depression. Okay, we've never seen it this bad. As I think you all know, I'm a very proud capitalist, okay? I believe in the capitalist system, but the idea that we're debating over income redistribution is the biggest crock of you-know-what. Nobody's suggesting for a second that we're going to make things level in here. We're going to have socialism in America. We're talking about the point that we have more working poor, people with jobs, that are classified as living below the poverty level. I think we all agree that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So what do we do about it? Do we really want to fight over food stamps?
Right.
Is that really, is that what we're fighting about? And as
We
a
don't
party
wanna
wants to
fight
win,
for it.
what are you
What
doing?
we want to do is say, how are you going to pay for these things? That's a simple question.
All right, Andrew,
you
I-
can't
I'm
keep
dying
writing
to
blank
jump
checks
in.
in
Go ahead.
Washington. How do you pay for these things?
Two observations. One, we conveniently seem to forget that the period in which we first installed these safety net measures, where we minimized the inequality in the country more than we have in the last century, the period from the end of World War II to the beginning of the 1980s, was the strongest economic period in our history. And the reason it was is because there was more money in more people's pocket, more people were able to spend. And we're not talking about socialism, we're talking about going back to that era where these safety nets were in place and some of these policies weren't as far out of whack as they seem to be in Washington right now. The second, and this is the part of these fiscal debates that I don't think it's played up enough, the Republican Party is not as interested in creating jobs as my friend OB would like to claim. They have become a party that is representative of and services business owners and corporate elite in this country, because that is where their money comes from. That's all they are, as a tool for the business owners and the 1% in this country.
Preach.
That's where their money comes from, and that's why they want to continue this gulf of inequality. And it also doesn't hurt that one of the mechanisms that the middle class had, the labor union, was solidly voting against your party for generations. It doesn't hurt you politically that they're now down in the dirt too.
And
why is that?
There's a great irony in it too. As Henry Ford, you know, he was a capitalist. You remember him? He recognized that while it's possible for business people to just say more, 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 I want to be richer than everybody, in the end it doesn't really serve you because you need customers. You need a middle class, a solid middle class that can buy the stuff that we make.
Sure.
And we're really undermining that now, and a big structural problem in our economy.
So raise
is that
the minimum wage
people
solution?
Well, you know
10,
what?
10?
It's a lot better than 7.
10-10 is not going to lift anybody out of anything.
so
first of
so
all.
you're
There's
joining
no
me at
safety.
15.
I gotta ask you guys, okay? You guys got pretty nice threads on. I know a few of us eat pretty well at this table. You're gonna tell me any of you guys could swing living on $7.50 an hour?
I'm not saying I could.
Time out.
And I'm also
That's
saying
not
I
the
couldn't
point.
swing it on
It's
10-10
not
an
what-
hour, Rich.
It's not what the purpose
Exactly.
was.
Talk to people right now that are making $8.50, $8.25 an
Yeah,
hour.
that
they
sucks.
said, you get me to 10. All of a sudden, when I get the bills every month, I can actually not have to decide between the lights.
Oh my God.
And not decide on putting on food on the
15
table.
an hour is going to make a difference
So
between the
so
lights and
you
lunch.
are
Get
you
out of here,
arguing
guys.
for 20 an hour?
Come on.
Where's the number you're comfortable with?
You know
Since
what?
you're so concerned
See,
about the
you
people
were
making
asked
10.
first, and each of you punted. Which is the top? You want to start
don't want
at
a top. I
10-10?
want a bottom.
You want a 10-10?
I don't want a top.
Oh, then
I don't
And
want a
also,
top.
10, I'll do it for you. No,
Okay.
I'll do it for you.
All right.
There's an equation.
Okay.
You keep up with the rate of inflation.
Good place
okay?
to start.
That's where it starts.
Well,
It
then
used, we
is
haven't
10-10
moved.
it?
Time out. We haven't moved on minimum wage to keep up with the rate of inflation. The wages for the middle class earners in this country have not kept up, while on the top end, it has gone up almost 100% from where it was before. Guys, what are we? Who
By
are
the
we
way-
kidding here?
by the
You
way,
know what's going on.
You know what else people who make the minimum wage have to do? They have to go on food stamps. Because they can't make their ends meet, so they have to file for federal assistance. That costs billions of dollars that we can't afford, and you come on here, or others will come on here and rail against the cost of food stamps. Well, you don't want people to be using food stamps as much. Pay them more, raise the minimum
I'm saying
wage.
when the government hands out these subsidies that they need to do, how do we pay for them? I don't care whether you're talking food stamps or you're talking any other government expense. Government
Would you have
expense.
bitched about the GI Bill back in the day? That's a government program, hands out money, giving
to.
people a leg up.
And how was it paid for? And how was it paid for?
would have
Actually,
to.
I was in the army, Rich. I
Yes.
know the
So
GI
you
Bill.
like
I'm
that
familiar
one.
with it.
You like that
I
one,
didn't.
right?
I did not get a GI Bill.
Socialism,
but I was in the
income
army.
redistribution.
No,
They said
but
that
the point
about
is,
Social
when you
Security,
signed up,
too.
when you signed up for the army, you knew what you were getting. You knew that was one of the benefits you had going to the army. That's a whole
You don't
different
want
ball of
the government
wax.
to pay more. You don't
That's
want
a whole
businesses to pay more. Who do you want to pay more money? Should everybody go into business for themselves?
What do you mean pay more money?
It's-
Are you saying the government doesn't have enough money to spend today?
No, you don't want the government to give bigger checks to people through food stamps or anything, or welfare or anything like that. You don't want companies to have to pay more for a
That's
minimum
not
wage.
the real reason.
How do you
Look,
pay
but you know what?
for
I
it?
got to break. But
Yeah.
we've seen it. To your point here, this is about November. These conversations. It's also about real people, real lives, real issues. But we see right now this is going to be a battleground. I think this might be the Democrats' only chance to hold the Senate and stop the bleeding in the House if they make this about pocketbook issues, because more than 70% of Americans on every issue I said agree that we need to do this. So this will be fascinating how this thing plays out. Hey, the Pope, yeah, take a shot at him, Opie.
we like the
Okay,
Pope.
up next on RFL, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, he takes shots at the president over the NSA spying program. Be interesting, who's with Rand Paul on this one? I don't think it may fall on party lines. Should the president be doing more to rein in spying against Americans? Our panel's going to talk about privacy and also protections in a post 9/11 America. Stay with us.